So hello everyone. Today I want to share with you two hows. Number one, how did we end up in a spiral that perpetuates our misunderstandings and misperceptions of police and community safety? And number two, how do we get out of that cycle or that spiral together to achieve transformative and sustainable community safety? So the common perception is that police is limited to badges, cruisers, arrests, and ticketing. Also, there are some conflicting narratives. Some believe that community safety is solely police's responsibility. But then there is a counter perspective. We need to defund the police and detask the police. And actually, these misconceptions and misunderstandings are at the core of that cycle that I call the spiral of disengagement and disorder. Before I discuss that spiral itself, we need to have a quick look at the history of policing over the past 5,000 years, which evolved, policing evolved in different forms, right? So from early roles as security guards and watchmen to bounty hunters and protectors of property, right? During all this time, policing has always adapted to society's needs. Modern policing evolved in 1829. That's when community policing was formalized. The foundation of policing was laid in the principles of community policing, which means community policing is a shared responsibility between officers and citizens. Over time, that foundation of community policing gradually eroded. Enforcement became the default as collaboration with the social service agencies weakened over time. Police were cut off from working in partnership with community and social service agencies, and there was no focus on addressing root causes of crime and safety. So we are actually now talking about the 60s and 70s. So that was the time when community left safety solely to the police force. During that era, the social disorder and crime escalated, and then communities stepped back and police retrenched, of course, and then prevention efforts faded, trust broke down. And when all those things happened, it means the focus was on enforcement. So enforcement intensified, and then over-policing followed. So the confidence in the system got completely eroded. So that was late 70s. So to counter that trend in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, community experts and policing experts, they tried to fix this downward trend by reintroducing the concept of community policing. Unfortunately, it was misunderstood. So community policing became a unit and not a mindset or a service-wide approach. And the result of that is that now, fast forward to our age, we have two silos within the police forces: the community police or community policing, the community police officers, and the traditional policing. This means that community policing is seen as a tactic, not as a foundation of police and community working in partnerships to address root causes of crime and safety. So fast forward to the 21st century, and the question is, what does good policing look like? So experts, policing experts, community safety experts, they agree that it's community policing. But again, this doesn't mean neighborhood policing or place-based policing alone, because that's part of the bigger picture. It means that police need to engage with community and partners for addressing risk factors through the comprehensive 4 levels of intervention. The status quo today is that a combination of operational, conceptual, and perceptual misunderstandings has locked us in a spiral that I call the spiral of disengagement and disorder. So I'll discuss the spiral quickly. So there is no specific starting point, but this is how the spiral perpetuates. I'll begin with the calls for service. Calls for service increase. Police officers with a mismatch of training and demand respond, because we can't train police officers for every single possible complex situation. But then they have to respond to those 911 calls. With that, when they respond to those phone calls, they have sometimes very limited information. And secondly, they have to make some split-second decisions. So out of thousands and thousands of those calls, some, of course, would not go as expected. Unfortunately, when that happens, complaints emerge which reinforce the negative narrative which is already there in the community. And these incidents validate existing biases and fuel further criticism. So as a result of that, people question police professionalism, their accountability, and then human rights, and all those factors come in. That deepens the misunderstandings, and then trusts keep eroding, sentiments get hardened, and ultimately public trust weakens to an extreme degree. So this leads to increase in anti-police sentiments, loss of public trust. Community develops a mindset not to work with the police, and then this leads to a breakdown in collaboration and partnership, particularly with the social service agencies and all these other key community partners. That leads to silos in the sector. Prevention falls off the radar due to lack of collaboration and coordination and leveraging of resources. And then that ultimately leads to increase in social disorder. And the increase in social disorder means increase in cause for service. And that's how the spiral goes on and on and on. So when we are caught up in this spiral, people think that police are not doing a good job, right? Or their job is only enforcement, or no one wants to work with the police. That's the worst one. So we know that data tells us a completely different story. So year after year, OECD conducts surveys, and those surveys show that Canadians place more trust in the police than any other institution. However, their trust alone won't fix the fundamental misconceptions that I just talked about, and which are the result of getting stuck in the spiral of disengagement and disorder. So now the question is that how do we bridge the divide? So to do that, we need to get out of this spiral, because this is keeping both the community and police in a trap and making it difficult to find the right solutions. So when police is trapped in the silo of enforcement and community in the spiral of disengagement, then we are not able to address the root causes of crime and safety. As a result of that, both policing and social development costs rise, their effectiveness decrease, and safety and well-being outcomes continue to decline. The question is that what's the way forward, right? So we must begin to off-ramp from this spiral. And the off-ramping process actually starts with conceptual clarity as the first step. So the first step is to shift the mindset and bring that conceptual clarity. And this step is related to the community at large. And we need to understand what constitutes community safety and what are the root causes of social disorder, crime, and violence, etc. Once we understand that, it becomes clear that police services are just one part of the equation, just one part of the solution. Even if we put 100% of resources into the police budgets, we won't be able to achieve true community safety without collaborative preventative work with community partners working upstream. Similarly, if we invest heavily in social development alone, but we don't focus on addressing risk factors that lead to social disorder, we are doomed to failure as well. So we need that balance, and we need to work together. So both the social development and incident response are critical, but we need to work in the collaborative space in the middle on prevention and risk intervention. We need to move beyond a reactive enforcement model by seeing the full picture of community safety. We need to see how everything connects: police, social services, and residents. So this is for the community to develop a very clear understanding about the root causes, where things begin and where things end up, and where do we need to collaborate and coordinate. So the second step is for the police services. The police services need to adopt community policing as a service-wide approach, not limited to a tiny section or unit for community policing, which is neighborhood or place-based policing. So of course, neighborhood policing is needed, but neighborhood policing is just one small, tiny part of the bigger approach. of community policing. So the community needs to keep in mind that there is always room for improvement and reforms, but detasking or defunding the police, those are not the solutions. The solution is to use the police to their full potential. We need to broaden the perception of policing beyond arrests and ticketing. The third step is for the community partners to embrace collaborative community safety, and that is to engage all sectors in addressing the root causes of violence, crime, and other issues which are related to safety, addressing issues through upstream prevention, midstream intervention, and downstream responses. Together, they form a full spectrum of safety strategy that involves action, transparency, accountability, and full community engagement. So this approach helps us define clear and shared roles for all community partners, and that's how we build harmony and lasting change through applying community safety and well-being approach. And that leads to all these three steps frame us from this circle of disengagement and disorder, and leads us to our goal of achieving transformative community safety. So the question is, why now? This is important now because the resources are limited and the social disorder is rising in some cities, in some municipalities. It has gone up to 80% or more than 80%, right? So without upstream collaborative preventative work, we'll see more enforcement, higher policing cost, and deeper public frustration. So trust will erode even further over time, and the spiral will not let us think beyond our self-interest. Therefore, collaboration is the key. That's the future. Conceptually, the path forward is very, very clear. It's as simple as A, B, and C. Practically, it's just a matter of time, of how soon we can make it real. If we don't do it today, then our future generation will do it, but that's the future, and that's how we can achieve true, transformative, and sustainable community safety and well-being. Thank you so much.